Hello, Dave. No, you're the wrong one. I love it when that happens. hey, JG, John, at least you're not naked. That's the main thing.
He could have been putting his nose. Harry told him, we'll be with you in 10 minutes, JG. He could have been like that.
Dave, honestly, Dave, I said to myself, right, I've got a new wire for my microphone. Hopefully, no crackling. I've sorted that. This is gonna be sharp, straight from the beginning. Wouldn't happen on Jonathan Ross, would it?
Did really well. That was amazing.
Anyway, you might have seen JG selling some shares and buying some shares because he's a budding businessman as well. On the phone in the green room, never stops. But yeah, that's who we've got on. He is he put this one together. So you want to be a peeler, boy? And that quote it's a lovely little book. It is a lovely little book, and basically just to introduce, it says it's a new unique memoirs based on the diaries and journals of Police Sergeant William Foyle and his eldest daughter Ellen, kept in the loft of Ellen's daughter for several decades. They were unearthed by William's great-grandson, John Greenfield, the man we've got today, who transcribed them for publication. So we'll get an idea of what policing was like in the late 19th century. Dave, how are you generally, mate?
About when you joined the police, wasn't it, Harry?
It was. Even though I look decidedly younger than you, it was...
Yeah, you do. Yeah, your hair colour comes out of a bottle, Harry. I'm convinced of it.
Honestly...
No way you can be your age in your early 70s and have hair like that.
My wife has always cut my hair, which saves me a whole morning waiting to get cut. But I'm two-tone. She says I've got go faster stripes. I'm like grey halfway down, so it looks like I've got a toupee on now, I think. Isn't it?
Yeah, you're a bit of a skunk.
Not that I'm vain. But I've seen photos of you, Dave, when you were much younger. You were a bit of a Philip Schofield, weren't you? No?
Well, no, I was. Yeah, I was bright blonde, like my eldest daughter when I was a kid. Then it sort of went a bit brown, a bit more brown, and then I went to Australia. And this is what I think happened. I went to Australia, and the sun bleached my hair back to blonde, and then eventually it just went grey. Then I had kids, and it went grey overnight.
Yeah. Really. I was blonde. I was bleach blonde as a kid.
Really?
Absolutely bleach blonde. Yeah. I don't know what happened there, but
no, mate.
Yeah. So no, I like grey. I'm growing. It's good. A bit grey there, but it's a bit two-tone at the moment. I'm gonna have to get some grey dye to sort of blend it in with the bottom part.
You've got to go one way or the other, mate. You've either got a bluey black hair for the rest of your life that comes out of a bottle, or
and the reason we don't have John with us on this conversation because he's got no hair, of course. So we didn't want him to feel left out,
Exactly.
So
his expertise on this one.
So yeah, has it been a busy week for you this week, mate?
Yeah, you know what? It has lots of hello, I am Pauline. I have made it on time this week, although I was excluded from the beginning of the show, as you'll see if you replay it. Harry's definitely trying to get those hints in. Yeah, it's been really busy. Lots of online dog training. So dog training has moved almost exclusively because of the current situation we're in online, which is fantastic. It means people can get to listen to the theory and you can spend a bit more time explaining stuff. So we've been very busy with some online dog training, fairly busy at work. I've taken a few days off. I've taken hardly any annual leave this year. And Gemma and I haven't seen each other because we work opposite. So we've had to take annual leave in order to see each other. Wow.
Sounds like a perfect relationship to see each other for so long, surely.
Well, someone said that because, our in-laws, obviously, they all work and they get to see each other every evening and every weekend. And Gemma and I think that's a bit of a dream. And when you explain to them that we go for months, sometimes with just seeing each other for a few minutes, then you realise, maybe that is the secret.
It is. That's why I'm sure. Because I think it was the man we're going to be talking about today, William Foyle. He was married for something like 56 years. So, they were sort of longevity, weren't they then?
Yeah. My grandparents were married for 50 odd years. And Yeah, I mean, I wear my granddad's. Obviously, they're long dead. This is my granddad's wedding ring, and I think secretly, I always hope that might help Gemma and I be together for as long as possible. Gemma and I have been together for 20 years this month. 20 years. That's why I've got grey hair.
Amateurs. 25 years, I think. Something for me.
Okay.
Somebody's saying, and I can confirm, your lips are out of sync with your sound, but your sound is good and your picture's good, so I think we'll go for that. You just need to stop talking like a 17 Spawn star or something, like, hey! Hey!
Yeah,
Not that I know what that's like.
Old Bruce Lee film. Hello!
But, yeah, so I think I have... These weeks fly by for me. My dog's getting lots of walks in the woods that is just opposite us. So that's good. That's my little fitness routine.
Your YouTube videos. You always do a YouTube video when you're going for a walk in the woods.
I've sort of, yeah, I do. That's my quiet contemplation YouTube video. But no, I've got another one. I've got another one coming on Monday, which is all about death. How do I deal with death for so long, sort of thing? Because people always do ask, about, how did you dodge PTSD and all that sort of thing. And I sort of explain, really honest stuff. 7:30 on Monday, you can get on my channel, Harry Tanguy, and we can see that. On the other hand, any news with Thin Blue Paw, mate?
Thin Blue Paw is doing incredibly well. We've got some exciting things coming up. I'm not going to tell you what they are, but they are incredibly exciting. We're talking to a number of police forces around the country that want to be at the forefront of some of the stuff that we're doing, which is absolutely incredible. And you get to hear more and more about it. Again, it's all about the dogs. It's all about preventative stuff and how to try and stave off some of the stuff that they can get in old age by changing some of the things when they're in service. So it really is about making sure the dogs have the best life possible, and they flipping deserve it.
They do that.
To come, but I'm not telling you what it is. It's all a secret.
We've been found out, Dave.
Yeah. Are we that transparent?
Our cover is blown.
Yeah.
Joe, we've been waiting for you, for goodness sake. Will you buck up in future? All right, thanks. All right, good. Right, I think... What's this about? Is Bella the dog going to get a mention? Who's Bella?
Oh, Bella. So we put a post on earlier in the week to talk about. So Bella was a heartbreaking story. See, there was a dog walker, and I think either her partner or a friend walking with her, and they could hear or see something on the side of a lake, and they couldn't work out what it was. And it wasn't until they got closer that they realised that it was a German Shepherd with a rock tied to her that had been thrown into the lake in the hope that by her owners that she would drown and die.
Oh my goodness!
Horrible thing. And the lady was wonderful. She jumped in and she pulled Bella out, thinking that she was probably dead. And they worked on her and they got her back and they rushed her to the vets. I think she went to the RSPCA in the end, and she's done a fantastic job. And Bella's recovered now, and I think she's in a foster home. And her old owners have had their first appearance at court, I think, where they pleaded not guilty. So we won't go into too much detail, but they are due to come back to court in early 2021. If you follow that story, keep following it. It really is an example of why we need Finn's Law Part 2. Sadly, Finn's Law Part 2 will not be in place for Bella's old owners. If they're found guilty, of course, they've got to go to court. But she's doing well. The good thing is Bella, beautiful German Shepherd, is doing incredibly well, and she's got a totally different life now to what she had.
Yes, success. Yeah. Lovely. Okay. Well, I think we should hold him up no longer because he's gone through 2 bottles of Chardonnay and halfway through the bottle of gin at the moment.
Fortune in that green room.
I know. We got to, we keep restocking it, and But anyway, it's got to be welcome to JG, as I know him, John Greenfield, otherwise known as Fab Site UK on Twitter. Mate, lovely to have you on here. How are you?
I am good, and I am deeply humbled that you've got me on here today. It's lovely for 3 of us to get together because it's been too long.
It is.
Yeah, yeah.
Last time was Gloucester, I think, wasn't it?
Oh yeah,
That
that was a couple of years ago. Must have been.
God, yeah.
Blind.
It just goes by so quick, doesn't it? You know.
Because you've had you're a busy man, because you're the opposite of Dave. You look much younger than you are, and John, and you sorry,
Yeah,
Dave.
I am.
I just. But you're a very busy businessman. You traded you basically learnt your trade as a welder, isn't that right? And you're still doing that. And you got
I left school at 15. Learnt the welding trade, became a welder. Happened to the age of about 23, and then I said to myself, I don't want to be employed by somebody. I want to work for myself. And then ever since then, I just developed a business, and over the last kind of 25, nearly 30 years now, I developed my welding skills and my business, and went into different things. My son is now my business partner, as you know. We have a very successful business. We have a fabrication company. And we have a shipping container sales brokerage. So we buy and sell, we import containers from
You actually designed and built for the fire service, didn't you? I think some time a little while ago.
And in all manner, Harry, RAF Portuguese. We built the fire simulation rig down there.
Yeah.
And you know, anything that can be built from a container, we do. And then when I step outside of that, then I have my other passion, which is obviously my policing side. Now,
tell us, you're not at the moment, but you volunteered for quite a long time, didn't you? And were you CCTV, and then you went out with them, and your experience as a volunteer got you into some places you didn't really expect, didn't they?
It's quite bizarre. I mean, coming from a policing family, which we'll talk about in a minute, it kind of was instilled in me, if that makes sense. So you have this passion to want to help, yeah.
Yeah.
And started off very simply. A friend of mine who's a serving police officer, my best mate.
Oh, John, just before you do, can you get a little bit? You seem all right for me, but a few people are saying you're quite faint. So if you just get nearer the microphone, something, that'd be good. And speak up. Right. That's ideal. Nice one, mate.
So anyway, I kind of started off with simple things like I obviously got my security clearance, and then I joined Hampshire Constabulary, set up a community speed watch and different things like that. And then one of the officers that I got quite friendly with said, look, come out with us one night and we'll teach you how to use the speed camera gun, which was a laser gun. And I went out with him. I did a 12-hour shift overnight, quite bizarre. But anyway, it worked. And then went back in, and they said to me, well, you quite enjoyed that, didn't you? I said, well, yeah, I do. But, he said, well, look, come out as an observer. So I started going out, and then it kind of developed. And over a period of probably 3-4 years, I did dozens and dozens and dozens of shifts. So I go out technically as an observer, police observer, but I got more and more and more into that role. And effectively, I was helping out way beyond the normal remit.
Yeah.
And eventually somebody said that, you've had a great run, it is kind of come to an end. And that was it. So I kind of parted company with Hampshire Constabulary. Don't get me wrong, it's my passion. I love doing it. I have incredible friends. And then somebody that we both know, and I'm sure she won't mind, Superintendent Nikki Leaper, highly much with Dorset Constabulary. I then went to them, put my papers in, got my security clearance back again, which around about the time if you remember, when we were at Gloucester, because I was just going through my security clearance, joined Dorset Police. And then that was it. I went back in, joined Dorset Police. I went in a little sub-control room with CCTV. And they were quite sort of, from day one, they couldn't quite understand why I was so au fait with police radios, while I was au fait with anything I saw, anything I dealt with. And then one night they said to me, would you like to go out on response? And I went out on response, and I did a 12-hour shift, again, a night shift, 6 to 6.
Yeah.
We went out and dealt with everything. And I won't elaborate on the things we dealt with, but we dealt with the very worst.
It's quite an eye-opener, isn't it, John?
This is, again, this leads me into my passion. People don't quite understand what serving police officers have to deal with on days when you have to deal with the very worst thing. When something happens in your life and it goes absolutely wrong, the first thing you do is pick up a phone, dial 999, and hope to God somebody turns up.
Yeah.
And 99.9% of the time, they will.
Yeah.
And the 8 years that I volunteered and all of the things I did, I had a huge insight. And that gives me the ability to be able to have an opinion to support our police family. You know, I come from a long, as you know, the book and everything, I come from a long line of police family. And my focus has always been, and always will be, all the time I'm here, to try and show the positive side of policing and show the support that all of our officers need. Because, you know, as I've said recently, you know, I did an interview with the BBC, and I said to them, you know, that the thing that angers me most, and again, this was highlighted in the book, if you go back to when Sergeant William Foyle served, if somebody was in trouble and a police officer went there, and he was, at the time he was a constable, police constable went there and he got overpowered, he blew his whistle, and members of the public were duty bound to step in and assist him. Nowadays, you'll get people stand there with a mobile phone, take pictures and think it's very funny, and not help you.
Now, it's interesting. It's interesting you say that.
Yeah.
Because, Dave, the impression of Victorian age for me was very strict and very sort of, you know, children from parents were very sort of, right, you know, seen, not heard, come here. And I've got some letters from my grandfather to my father, and they were very sweet and endearing. And this was in the early 20th century, so you know, he was 1909 born, so when he was about 10 years old. And John's book here has sort of highlighted a similar sort of thing. And Dave, John, if you could actually let me know, there was one particular thing here about a pillow that was being, I'll tell you what it is. It's page 40. I've got to read a little bit out of this, if I can just breach copyright and read a bit out. It was
whatever you need to do.
So basically, your great-grandfather and his wife, who was Ellen.
I know what you're going to tell me. Yeah.
And they live in the house, and it was quite common for the wife to have the keys to the cells, all right? And if you were caught, well, tell me the conditions of this, John. What if you were caught, even if you were a youngster? What were the conditions like initially in these cells and things?
In you know, according to the diaries, which I transcribed and put into this book, all of the cells were very basic: a concrete bed, which was literally a concrete bed.
And this was the Isle of Wight, wasn't it? The Isle of Wight.
I'm talking about this in this instance. What we're referring to is the Isle of Wight, and the cells in Newport, the cells in Cowes, were all the same. They're the same design. That was just a concrete block, and you would be given, irrespective of whether you were male or female, you would be given just a very simple grey blanket. And now I know the incident you're referring to.
Go on, yeah.
It was where William's wife was in the cell. She went into the prison because he was off out on duty. She was given the keys because in those days it was kind of like an old time volunteer, really. She would assist her husband if he was a constable, whatever rank he was. It was the wife's, you know, duty to help. And she went into this cell and she saw this young girl in the cell crying, and she felt very sorry for her. And she thought, well, you know, it's not very nice. It's cold. You know, she's got this little grey blanket. So she went back into the house next door, got a pillow, took it out, took it into the cell to try and make the girl comfortable to calm her down. And she was sort of mindful that it was sort of, you know, breaking the rules, because in them days, if the law had been broken, you would be punished. There were, it was very strict. And what she actually did, she sort of intended to go in and take the pillow back out before, you know, Sergeant William Foyle came back in off his beat. And unfortunately, his senior officer came into the station where the police cell was and saw the pillow. And then obviously, because that technically, you know, was a clear violation of the rules, William and his wife were brought before the inspector, and he was fined. He was fined for her sort of
kindness. Wow.
Yeah, but fined how much? It was a whole week's wages.
It was. And in them days, you know, a week's wages was you know, what was it, 2 shillings or something, or 3 shillings or something? It was, you know, it was devastating, but it taught a lesson. Yeah, so that, even though, you know, as the book tells you, William was a very hard police constable, but he had a compassionate side. He cared about people. He wanted to do things to help people, as our police officers do today.
Yeah.
And it, that was just one incident where his passion for caring for his fellow man, kind of bit him. If you want to explain it in any other way. But there's loads of instances. I mean, the element of the book, that certain elements of the diaries that I placed in this initial book are very good. But there's loads more that will come. And
I mean, I'll show. This is another thing that jumped out at me. It's just a book you can pick up and just read a little bit more. And if you like, you can read the actual journal, more technical bits for the more details for dates and things. But the majority of it is very easily summarised. You were talking earlier about blowing the whistle and things. He said, and
it just
he says
that is a huge thing for me. That's one of the most,
go on,
because I've been very privileged in the 8 years that I've offered my services voluntary to 2 different constabularies. I've been out and about. I've seen it. I've been out on my own afterwards. Gone into a supermarket, and somebody will be there. There'll be fisticuffs going on, and people will just stand there. And then you'll see a PCSO try and separate them, and people will just stand there and watch.
Yeah.
And me, I intervene. I have done that.
Yeah.
But if you go back to the whistle and this little device here, which is the old-fashioned people, these, we obviously send these out with the books. People want them. They're lovely because they're a key ring as well.
Good.
Wouldn't it be lovely if
perfect stocking filler? Don't you think, John?
Oh, fantastic! Yeah, I mean, we're selling quite a few of them, to be honest. But at the end of the day, wouldn't it be lovely if you could blow that whistle and somebody would come and help you?
These are good. These are good stocking fillers too, aren't they, Dave?
Yeah, they are, mate. Yeah, definitely.
Oh, I haven't got one of those. I've got to make do with this old thing.
You need to get online, JD, and have a look. So, I mean, I guess the thing for him as well would have been, he couldn't just jump on a radio and ask for assistance. There wasn't a local car driving around. And I know we do struggle for resources, but if you do shout for assistance, that all your colleagues will drop everything and run. But they didn't have that, which is why they had to rely on that whistle, which is, I guess, is why it was instilled into everybody that if you hear that policeman's whistle, you go and do your bit.
Right. Well, I've got to say on that there's a bit here when his daughter, William Foyle's daughter, said, well, I know he got attacked in a farmer's field with 2 yobs, and they punched and kicked him.
Yep.
And basically, she said, "Oh, got 3 years hard labour, Dad. That's a bit tough, isn't it?" And if I can just quote Ellen, I am a police constable. My job is to uphold the laws of our great country. If in doing this I am injured in the execution of my duty, then I look to the judges to protect me and show we will not accept this action. When those who hurt us are found guilty, we constables know our judges will be tough. And then she adds, once more, another valuable lesson was learnt by his daughter, she says, because she's writing this. She says, I hope in years to come, and this was when she wrote this, like a million years ago. I hope in years to come the same views are upheld. It's important the police constables know they are protected in law. Ba-dong!
Wow.
I'm going to tell you something now, Harry. I was going to bring this up and read that exact same.
Oh, were you?
I can't believe that.
She'd be turning in her grave, wouldn't she?
Oh, God.
She'd be turning in her grave.
Oh, somebody, yeah. I mean, I just the beauty of this is, if you compare how days of old were, how, and it's really strange, policing numbers. At the time William served, there were, I think I mentioned it in there, 60,000 police officers in the whole of the United Kingdom. Yeah. But the population was about 29 million.
Wow, so a third of what we have now.
So if you look at where we are now, if figures are correct, we have about 121,000 serving.
Yeah, about that.
Yeah.
So we have a
So it's only
population
double.
of 70 million. So that kind of
Exactly.
perspective.
Yeah.
And they also, though, John, they actually said here that they questioned whether the 60,000 was anywhere near enough at the time.
Right, because if you analyse it, especially when we were talking about the Isle of Wight, at the time, these diaries were kept and William was serving, there was a fairly substantial amount of people on the island, but they had a lot of officers over there, a lot of constables over there. So they all knew that if something went wrong, they could blow a whistle and somebody would respond. And 9 times out of 10, it would be a fellow constable, because they'd be, sort of all over pounding their beats and doing what they do. But this is the difference between nowadays. If you have something you have to respond to, it takes time, because the numbers are so low, aren't they? If we're honest, we need more police officers on the street to deal with the numbers of people that we now have in the country. And
the different crime. This is what people don't understand, isn't it, Dave? Because when you think what the crime is now, what we investigate, and how it's moved from.
One of the difficulties with policing, Harry, is and John, is that deterrent factor. When you have lots of police on the street, there's no doubt that there is a deterrent factor, but you can't measure that. You can't measure the deterrent factor. So it's an easy one to justify getting rid of numbers, because you can't quantify, you can't hold that deterrent factor. So
if
it's not recordable, it's not important, which is just so wrong. It's just so wrong.
I mean, if you look at part things outside of this book, but just something that's relevant to this. If you look at a police officer's role today, it's a lot more complex. They're dealing with a lot more issues, aren't they? They're dealing with it's not just a police officer upholding the laws of the land. He goes out and deals with, sadly, mental health issues, medical issues, and things that back in the day when William served would not happen. There were laws. The laws were upheld. The judges were brutal. The people understood you don't break the law unless you want to be punished. And I've had a diversify slightly. I've had a terrible case this week where our local church in the village where my mother lives was vandalised, and to me, I went onto social media and I said, this is just appalling. They destroyed a statue, a remembrance statue of a soldier. They kicked the fences down. They broke the benches in the entrance chapel. And to me, that is a very serious offence. But if they got caught, they will go to, and they will get a community service order, maybe, if you're lucky. They'll get a fine if you're lucky. But they won't get the level of punishment that if something like that happened in 1900s, they would go before a magistrate, and the magistrate would order them to be birched. Now that is a form of punishment. If you look at days of old to where we are now, but once you had that punishment, and there's some more notes to that in the diary, because my great grandfather was not a great admirer of that form of punishment. But there are some references in the book that said once people have had that punishment, very rarely do they reoffend. Now, that's quite a scary element.
He comes, and do you know what? I've always said, if community service worked, and I've said, look, educate me. Anyone who was involved in community service, tell me, did it work? Is it working in the background that we don't know about? What's it doing? And everyone's come back saying, no, it's crap, because it just was built to fail. And the trouble is, I think in the old days with community service, they chuck 8 offenders in the back of a pickup truck, drive them down to some graffiti, but of course now it's health and safety, it's training, it's the right amount of supervision. It makes it just funds it out of it, and maybe the stocks as well, bit of humiliation against the Human Rights Act. But boy, did that work, because it was like the community was the family who was saying, that's not good enough, don't do that again.
I mean, with that, if you know, the element of the diaries that I, transcribed into the book. There's loads more, but the thing that comes across, and we're going back to 1900s UK, is the fact that there was very strict discipline. There was, and the police constables that served in those days, they would deal with a lot of cases. So if somebody was offensive, somebody was, abusive, they got caught stealing, some of the times a constable would deal with it. And if somebody was drunk and they were, like as we see now, you see so many of our officers assaulted. If somebody went to assault an officer, he'd retaliate knowing that he was doing his job and he would be backed by the judges. The problem we got now is if an officer is put in a position where he has to defend himself, even though the evidence shows that he was defending himself, somebody will come along and try and argue the case that he overstepped the mark. In the days of William, they knew that the judges, the system that they had, would back the police officers, and that is a huge thing. And I'm a great one. I'm very opinionated on social media, as everybody knows.
Yeah.
But the thing that
I'm not.
of all of this, the thing that we really do need to get back in the UK is to get discipline back, to teach the young generation right from wrong, to teach them manners, to respect their police officers. That it's so frustrating when you pick up the newspaper and you see a story and all the press want to do is just slate the hard-working police officer.
But he was.
I think that discipline starts really young, though, doesn't it? It starts before the likes of me or Harry should get hold of you. It should be so instilled in you before you even come into contact with your first police officer. That discipline.
Maybe people have it too easy, because when you read the book, you really get the idea of how poor people were. And then people talk about poor people now, and of course there's some. And this is the other thing. I wish people would educate me. Why is it that some unemployed can live without food banks and some can't? Tell me. I want to know. I think people have their own ideas. That's another subject. But in those days, comparable to today. There were people dying of starvation, basically. Yeah. There were people, they were damned hungry. And so they had to have discipline in order that the place wasn't just wrecked. But what I really would like to know is, can you tell us the story of when he caught those guys who were nicking all that beer? Can you remember that one, John?
Really strange.
Good detective skills.
He was, I think that was an actual fact. I was over there. When I went to the Isle of Wight a couple of months back, I went and I followed William's footsteps for 3 days on the island, which was quite an emotional experience, to be honest. And it was a story of the military. There's a military fort, and close by there was a hotel where they had a barn where they kept the beer barrels, and they couldn't work out where the beer barrels were going. And eventually, William sort of staked the place out, and he did a little bit of investigating, and he found a couple of people staggering back from the bottom of these cliffs up to the fort where the army was stationed, a little bit worse for wear. And then eventually worked out that what they'd actually done, they'd taken the barrels and they'd taken them down to the below the cliffs and buried them in the sand. So whenever they wanted to go and have some beer, they just go for a walk, and they would come back up, a little bit worse. But the mystery never unfolded how they got the barrels from there down into the beach below because you couldn't transport down. So they must have had a way of doing it. But it was.
It's great, but I think the punishment was pretty tough then as well, wasn't it, mate? It was something like hard labour again.
It was. Yeah, I mean, it was quite lengthy custodial. I think it was 5 or 6 years, was it, or something?
Yeah. Like that? Whoa. Blimey.
Oh yeah, there's no messing about.
But sentences fitted the crimes in those days.
I like this poster. They did. I like this poster. Let me just put this. This is the sort of poster that decided your great grandfather to join. So that's it. Wanted intelligent. I thought it said attractive first of all, but it says active young men, because Devon and Cornwall would be young and attractive young men. So
I was going to elaborate on that, but I won't.
Go on. Tell us about it. What made him actually go and join the police?
Well, basically, it came from a broken home. So he left. He left.
That's
Wiltshire.
fascinating.
He was living in a while, but he had this kind of passion that he wanted to help people, and the story goes that he came to Winchester. He was living rough. He was generally was living on the street rough, and he walked by the police station at the time at Winchester, and he saw that sign that you just put up, and he sort of walked away and then came back, and then he decided that he'd go in, and he went in and sort of spoke to the sergeant at the time, which was as the book says, a big burly gentleman with a big moustache, and explained to him who he was, what he wanted to do, and as the story tells, he sat him down and explained to him what it would involve being a police constable in 1897, and he went for it. And his focus was that even though he'd had a bad time himself, he would try and do his best to help people. And through his whole police career and his family life, right till the day sadly he parted, his whole focus was to help people in need. There's this most incredible story in there which you've probably picked up on, where very sad story where
so sweet.
A little lad was caught stealing potatoes, and William followed him, and he found him crouching under a big old broken down sort of cart in the middle of the sort of wooded area, and he could see that he wasn't very well, and he sort of picked him up and he took him home. And in them days, that was quite a significant thing to do, because obviously in those days it was workhouse kids that were orphaned, and he knew that he wasn't well, and he took him to the house and sort of they cared for him, and eventually they managed to calm him down and sort of explain to him, what had happened, why have you taken this? And he said, Mummy's not very well. And anyway, cut a long story short, I think the book tells you, William knew instinctively that something was quite bad, and he went back to the sort of store area where they lived and the potatoes were taken from, and they went out back, and sadly the mother had passed away.
Oh, crikey.
He had to go back, and there's this really emotional bit in the book, and it tells you how he had to go back, and he cradled this little boy in his arms and explained to him that his mother had gone to heaven, and that he sort of was going to sort of look after him. And he went to his inspector the following day and asked his inspector to get permission to look after this little boy, and they did. 2 weeks. They got the doctor out. Poor little lad had a bad chest and things like that, but it highlighted, for me, the compassionate side of policing.
Yeah.
So, you've done a huge career. Dave, you're still serving. My humble little bits, I've seen it. Yeah. So there's side, this is why I really wanted to push this book out, because it shows how policing life is. It shows that compassionate side to me matters. Yes, a police officer can be tough. They've got to uphold the laws of the land. But there comes a time when that police officer looks at something and says, you know what, I really need to help him. Because at the end of the day, no matter what you are, who you are, what rank, you still are, a human being, and you've got to care for your fellow man.
And sometimes that one intervention in someone's life like that, and I had a few interventions when I was a kid because I had a troubled childhood. Sometimes that one intervention can be the difference between someone going down that path or going up that path, So it's incredibly important when we get the opportunity. We don't always get the opportunity. And when you get the opportunity, to try and just take a minute to listen and see if you can help someone. Because, so, as well as I do, John, and you, Harry, we've all had our strange moments in our life when we could have gone down that path and something made us go that way. And it's only one, we're all one decision away from putting a 7p carrot sticker on a box of donuts.
No, I was always a good boy. Never even a bad thought. But
sorry, Harry.
JG, I want you to tell us, because you sent us this, because you found this recently, right? And could you give us a very quick thing of what you know about this, right? This is a little tapestry thing, right? And it's got E and F on there.
Incredible.
E and F. Right, what's this about?
This is absolutely unique. This is a one-off. There is not another one in the world, that I can tell you. This, I was over with my mother 2 weeks ago, and in amongst the things that we were sort of, rummaging found, we came across this. Now, this is, and it's dated 1916. This was made by a soldier who was a patient at the Royal Victoria Hospital in Netley during World War One. And in the book, it details how William came away from the island. He went to work in the docks at White Star Line. Then he decided he wanted to go back into policing, went to the Royal Victoria Hospital as their constable. And this soldier he befriended. And if you look at the tapestry has actually got Ellen, it's got EF. If you look at it, it's got E at the top and F at the bottom. And that was Ellen Foyle. And this soldier gave this to William to thank him for his kindness. And the boat that you see there, it's actually the hospital ship that used to moor up at the jetty, which is no longer there. It used to bring the soldiers back from the battlefield. And that is just, it's probably, 12, 14 inches square. Dated 1916.
Right, well, that hospital ship, right? Yeah. I said I might have a little surprise for you here. Because I was hoping you may not know this. You might say, yeah, no, Harry, I knew that. I just wasn't going to say it. Right, so this photograph, first of all, is in, I'm not saying it's in here or anything, but this is in your book. And this was Queen Victoria in 1901. Why was she on the island exactly? What was this about? And this, your great-grandfather, William Foyle, guy in this book, he mentions this. He was very proud to do his parts in this, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was. I mean, when Queen Victoria passed away, she was at Osborne House on the Isle of Wight.
She loved the Isle of Wight, didn't she?
Yeah, she did. And they obviously transported her from the island back to the mainland. And doing so, they had this massive parade through Cowes. And this was where we had, you had soldiers, you had police constables, you had, members of the public, you had everybody in doing the parade. But obviously William was there overseeing sort of, what he had to do at the time. But it was, uncovering that quite a
right. Well, let me just say, police officers marched, followed by more guards and big drums and a huge military band. He said Queen Victoria's coffin was on a gun carriage pulled by horses, and even more officers and guards followed on foot. The royal yacht, HMY, Her Majesty's yacht, is it? HMY Victoria and Albert, anchored off Cowes Harbour, was a splendid big yacht. Grandeur beyond our dreams. He describes the hundreds of people gathering that day. So I did a little bit of research on the Victoria and Albert, HMY Victoria Albert. And I'll just remind you of this, what the tapestry looks like. And initially, I was a bit disappointed because, so you've got two chimneys in the middle. It was like a steamship. And you've got the main bulk of the cabin at the front there, okay? So if I actually look at what I saw as the Victoria and Albert, all right, I always thought, well, close, but not quite close enough, right? Because the bulk is in the middle and the two chimneys. But then I see that this is the Mark II. And the Victoria and Albert Mark III was designed by the head of the Royal Navy, built by the head of the in about 1890. And in 1901, it was released for use. And that is the same year, right? So then I have a look at the Mark III. And this is the Mark III. Now, I'll just show you quickly the original tapestry so people can sort of, there's two chimneys in the middle, bulk on the left, and two masts as such, wasn't it? So let's have a look at a photograph of the Mark III. And let's just see if that is anything close.
Oh, yeah.
Right. And Wikipedia says the Mark III had a reign of 4 sovereigns and was eventually used in the World Wars. And that would have been as a hospital ship, I imagine. So I think there's...
Royal Victoria Hospital. That was named after Queen Victoria, Royal Victoria Hospital.
Right. So were you aware of that?
Huh?
Were you aware of that, JG?
What, the hospital, but not the ship.
Right, so that, and well, okay, not only that, I suspect, looking at this, at the original photo, so that is definitely the one, it definitely looks the same. If you look at this, and if you look at, not those, hang on a minute, let me just, in the background here, there's some rather tall ships.
Yeah.
And you can't see them very carefully. Now, there's two very similar. And seeing as one, the brand new one, was brought in 1901 into service, this is 1901. I wonder if they had the old one and the new one, the Mark II and the Mark III there.
Oh.
But that, I am quite sure, is
Harry,
what is in your tapestry.
You historical researcher, Harry.
That's what you do.
You've been a detective, Harry.
No, I like going outside and...
What an absolute find. I'm going to do some more digging on that.
Yeah, just look up Wikipedia on the Queen Victoria and Albert. It's all in your book, mate. It's all in there. You just didn't see it.
How long did he serve, JG, as a copper? As a dealer?
Let me think. He took him into his 70s, so
Blimey.
it was he had a break. Obviously, he worked on the on the island, so he was on the island for about, let me think, must have been about 19, 20 years, I think, on the island. And then he came away and he went into Southampton docks and he got Master of Arms for White Star Line. And then he decided when the war broke out that he wanted to go back into policing. So then he applied again back to Hampshire Constabulary, because at the time when he left the island, it was Isle of Wight Constabulary. And then he went back into policing. But he then decided he actually retired when he was 72. It says that in the book. And then, because World War II had broken out, he then went to become like a fire warden, fire watcher. So he'd go out on patrol because he was an ex-police constable. He would go and walk around the street. And it, mentions it in the book that obviously his wife was concerned because obviously you don't always hear the siren when bombs are dropping. But in terms of service, he physically worked within his sort of policing mindset till he was 72.
Incredible.
Yeah.
And
Harry, get the uniform back on.
You know what?
Say again?
More incredible.
I was going to say, Harry, get the uniform back on for another 20 years, mate.
Oh, right, yeah. No, I think even if I could cope with the police, I'm not sure the police could cope with me.
No, they couldn't.
But it is, I was looking at, I kept checking the dates and thinking, well, no, he'd be too old. Surely he can't be working. Especially in those days, the life expectancy wasn't quite so long. But
rules were different.
He was early 90s, wasn't he?
Yeah.
When he died, I think. There we go.
No, the 80s.
Oh, yes, that's right. That's pretty good for then, wasn't it? 67 to 51. Some do the maths.
When we uncovered these diaries, the thing that really kind of
can't quite
blew
see
me
it.
away, the fact that when I started doing some research, I found out that when I was a child, when I was like 4 years old, I lived in the house that he lived in.
Oh my God! Yeah, did you?
My aunt, who was obviously his daughter,
Mr. Apter.
I was a little kid, and it was just
the boss.
Oh, right, yeah. Well, sorry, everyone stand up. We've got
Salute.
John Apter is.
I think we've been ready.
Sorry.
Very, very humble today, John Apter. Very humble. Sorry,
John. For those that don't know who that is, that's John Apter. He's the chair of the entire Police Federation for England and Wales. So
and he happens to be as human as a person, just to embarrass him so he doesn't come again. Really, he's such a gentleman and lovely, lovely guy. As much as JG and almost Dave is as well. But
I'm a huge admirer of John because he does such incredible work.
Anyway, he's blushing.
So go on. Go on, John. You were living in the house. You lived in the same house.
I got to earn the money that he sent me. So sorry, John, I'm joking. But, so I kind of, I had a couple of years where I lived in the house where William was. He lived out his days, which was quite remarkable. But,
Amazing.
moving on from that, what was even more amazing, off the back of this book, when we launched, I had it in my heart that I wanted to find out where he was laid to rest. So my daughter, bless her, wrote to the vicar who runs the church where we knew he was laid to rest, and he very kindly gave me a layout of the plots of the grave and exactly where William was laid to rest. Yeah. And sadly, there's no headstone. It's my mission, and I will do this eventually. My plan is to use any money that I make off the back of this book to go and put him a nice headstone to remember him by, because I think it's important. He gave so much, and I think that would be a really lovely thing to do.
That's lovely. That is a lovely thing to do, mate.
It's not for me. The whole just the book. Sorry.
Because at the moment, because some people look on Amazon and things, it says it's out of sale, whatever. Get it from can you tell them where to get it from, John?
Yeah, you can go to the website, which is our own website at the moment. It will be on other sources, but at the moment, for our own purposes, we're marking it from our own resource. Go to www.greenfield-productionslimited.com. If you go there, that is a complete background of all what we're trying to achieve, what the long-term game plan is. You can buy the book there, but also what is really good now, because we're quite clever with the internet, I've actually set up a domain name for Sergeant William Foyle. So if you put sergeantwilliamfoyle.com into the search engine, it'll take you to his website and you can buy a book.
Little did he know, I think he'd be quite proud of you, JG. I think he'd be quite proud of you.
It's been for me, it's been a fantastic journey. And
what's the one biggest takeaway? What's the one biggest thing you take away from reading his diaries and working on the book, John? What's the one big thing you take away from it?
The thing that I take away from this is that I share his blue blood. Honestly, my daughter, bless her, I sent it to you, Harry, the letter.
I was going to say, and I even said to her, I wish my daughter would send me something like that. Yeah, how much are you able to share of that, mate?
It was an incredible letter that my daughter wrote because when the book was finally done, we had to tell you, this was presented to me, which is the folder with the final draft of the book before it went to publishing. And my daughter very kindly wrote a beautiful sort of letter in there about, her, being involved with me and everything like that, and about my sort of passion for helping people. And then she highlighted the fact that I had no idea why my mindset and why I was the way I was, why my passion for teaching. But now, to answer your question, Dave, is the fact that I know that I've got blue blood running through my veins. That makes sense,
Yeah.
But, what was really good, I was leading up to this, and I decided that it would be really good if I could go and follow in his footsteps, because there's so many wonderful little stories and things, in the diaries. And I decided, and I went on a three-day journey to the island. I went over the island and I followed in his footsteps. So I went to Newport, I went to Cowes, I went to all the places that William went.
Is the police house still there?
Sorry?
Is the police house still there?
The old police house, and actually I did put a couple of pictures out on social media. All that's left is the back wall of the old police station. But the most moving thing for me is I actually went to, in there you'll see that in the book it tells you about when William was at the Marconi first radio transmission from Knighton over to the mainland with Marconi, and he was there, he's the only officer on duty. And when I went to the island, it was my focus to go down to where it was, and I actually went and stood where he stood. And I've got a picture of me stood where he stood in 1901.
Yeah, lovely.
It absolutely the most incredible emotional journey. And when I was over there, it's just uncanny how things happen. I went down to Knighton, and there's this old farm down there now, and they've got this, there's a lot of stuff there, and the buildings are still there. It's all remembering that day. And when I was there, at two police officers came down in a car because you had to walk down there. You're not allowed to drive down there. You can walk down there, but a police car can go down there. And two police officers came down, and I'm stood there, and they've got a camera there, and we're like filming, and you know, I'm sort of doing a commentary on a microphone for future stuff. And they stopped and said, you know, could you mind telling me what you're doing? And I explained to them who I was. And we got chatting, and they were Hampshire Constabulary police officers. And by coincidence, and I know he's watching this at the moment, they knew John Apter quite well.
Yeah, because that was his original force.
When I spoke to John on the phone, I said to them they were very complimentary, which is lovely, you know. So,
do you know when John Apter was before he was the chair? I knew him on Twitter as a Hampshire Federation rep. And the private messages you get, people tell the truth. And he said, do you know what? He hasn't changed a bit since when he was here. The extra effort he put in, and this, I'm going to quote your great-grandfather here, and this hasn't changed. It's the same as John. It's very much the same in why people get into policing. He said, so Ellen said, again, I quote my father, if you help your fellow man and you do what is right, your actions will bring rewards much greater than money. I often wondered what he meant at the time, but now I know. If you do good things for others, you feel good. It's a lesson for all. And basically, there's nothing I've found better than having somebody who really deserved help, got help, and was so relieved they had help. Absolutely. And you can forget all the other stuff around it, you know?
Yeah. Absolutely.
And there's quite a few quotes I quote from your great-grandfather. What would he, you know, how on earth would he have known all this? And it's down to you and your daughter and the generations between. That's why it's there now, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean,
to remind us all.
It's just, you know, the things we uncovered, and you know, we're a long way from bringing it all to the public domain. You know, there's lots of other things. I mean, I can tell you now, and I don't think anybody's aware of this, but I'm about, you know, 2/3 into the next book. And the beauty of the next book is, yes, it's based on other references from the diaries, but the angle, and this is not, nobody knows this until now, so this is breaking news. The angle is that this is William looking down from the beat in the sky, using his knowledge and his thinking, and comparing what he sees to what he knew in the days gone by. So effectively, he'll you know, the book will refer to his diaries, to things that he did and see, and then he'll look at and say, well, you know, I don't think that case was right, this was not right, the sentence wasn't right. And it's a comparison between days of old and now. And it's going to be a bit of a journey to put it all in to make it something that's readable. But the beauty of it is, can you imagine, you know, if for argument's sake, well, a magic, we could bring him back and let him tell serving police officers now what it was like in his day and how the judges were tough. You know, they were knowing that if somebody punched them, that person was going to jail and they'd get hard labour. You know, for me, it just, you know, the whole thing is just giving me, I don't know, it's given me a lot of joy, because it's not, for me, it's not about trying to make money off the back of this. This is a tool that can give me what my message I'm trying to get across to everybody. Yeah, I care. You know, I make no bones about it. Everybody knows. I speak to very senior officers, you know, from the top downward. I care passionately about our police service. I care about every serving police officer, you know, and that will never change. That's me. That's my mentality. And when I had the opportunity to do this book, to show how it was, you know, in those days, and use references, when I make comments on social media, when I do a blog or something like that, I know from the humble bit of experience I've had to the reference of the book, how it should be, and why, when I see somebody that punches a police officer in the face and gets a £25 fine and a community service, it's wrong. You know, it is wrong. And yes, you know, people do criticise me. You know, unfortunately, there are people out there that, oh, you're too opinionated. But at the end of the day, if you're honest with people and you tell the truth and you tell it like it is, which I do, then it gets your message across. And this book has been the most incredible tool to enable me to keep flying the positive flag for our police officers. And that to me is what it's about. Plus the fact,
JG, we're running out of time, but there's a couple of things that would be important that we make sure we pass on to you. So John Apters said the National Police Historical Society will be fascinated with this. So if you're not talking to them, then I'm sure he can help you. And UK Pop Humour, good evening. Great to have you here. They've given a suggestion as well to see if you can find some more information. So hopefully there might be a little bit of help out there to just
John, can you read that message? Can you read that message there, mate?
Yeah, and there's that one too, which made me smile.
Oh yeah, that's my daughter. Bless her. I love you, baby.
That's the one, and that's the Hants have spoken to the National Police History Society. Great, they'd be fascinated.
I'll talk to you. Yeah.
Good, excellent. Well, thank you so much. Our hour is up, John. Yeah. So it has.
I could go on into the evening. It's been incredible.
Yeah. I know. I think we hit some really good spots and things like that. So there's the book. If you don't remember, but basically put the name in the search engine, and anything with John Green.
I mean, if you just put, so you want to be a peeler, a boy, into any search engine, it'll bring it up. Put Sergeant William Foyle in, it'll come up. Yep, happy days.
Good. That's lovely. Next week we have Benjamin Pearson.
Been yet, Tom?
Oh yeah, go on, do that.
No. You talk about next week, so I give people.
Well, okay, yeah, that's right. So I've got Benjamin Pearson. Now, he was a police interceptor, and he retired early because of PTSD. And we've got him coming on for next week. Really looking forward to speaking to him. So recommend you get the book on that. That's another great book. There's another. See, I've never read so much, but we've got these two that keep getting in the way.
Look at those.
Really good Christmas presents.
One as well. Look, it's in my office.
Well, now you put that, I've got to put that one on now more. That's better. That's better. And if you want and basically, I basically do a YouTube and I get a lot of followers who are just people who are wanting to join the police, a little bit worried about joining the police, and police officers who are looking at joining traffic ARV. At the moment, Monday at 7:30, if you go on my personal YouTube channel, I can be a little bit more controversial on there. That is sort of from the heart side of dealing with road death, dealing with natural death, children, whatever. And it's my perspective on it. You might want to join me on that one. But I think that is it. Dave, anything else from you?
No, any dog training questions, send us a message and we'll help you through them. We've helped so many people this week. It'd be fantastic. If you have any dog training questions, give us a shout. And we will see you next week. Have a wonderful week. JG, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you, JG.